So I was born in 1975. The first 6 years of my life were spent in the Divis Flats, just off the Falls Road in West Belfast. The flats, as they became to be known, should not be confused with the Divis Tower, which still stands today. The flats were very rightly demolished in the early 90s and replaced with a more habitable style of housing. The flats was where men were men and the women were hard as nails. I grew up in a nuclear family, 2 parents, 1 male, 1 female, 2 sisters, 1 younger and 1 older, and 1 brother, older. I noticed from very early on that my sisters and I were very different. My sisters look physically similar, with large mops of curly black hair, and they had a passion for dolls, prams, and wearing my ma's high heels to play a game of house. I had poker straight brown hair and a passion for books, and thoroughly enjoyed wearing my dad's steel toe cap boots to join in on this game of house. My hair was very long. In fact, it was so long that my ma would have to put it into 2 plaits before going to bed in the evening in order to make the next morning's hair brushing session less painful. Apparently, keeping it in plaits reduces the number of tangles, or as we call them here in Belfast, tats, to a bare minimum. Even at the tender age of 3 or 4, I felt in my mind that these plaits just weren't for me. They made me look like a girl. I would have swiftly unplaited my hair when my ma left the bedroom, and then swiftly regretted it the next morning as the hairbrush ripped through the tangles and tats. But still, the nightly ritual of undoing the plaits persisted, and I slept soundly knowing that I didn't look like a girl. I couldn't help but have a sly grin on my face the day my ma took me to the hairdresser's to get my first page boy style haircut. Apparently, she couldn't stick the daily arguments between her and I with regards to keeping the plaits plaited. My ma's claims that she would break my spirit before I broke hers in the battle of the hairdo didn't quite work out for her. Upon leaving the hairdressers with my fabulously stylish, well, I use stylish very loosely, page boy haircut, I felt the hair finally matched the body. The battle very quickly progressed from hairstyle to clothes, though. Every year, my aunts would send black bags of clothes to my ma for my sisters and me. Every year, my sisters would rummage through the bags of hand-me-downs and squeal with delight when they spotted a Lady Diana blouse or a pastel-coloured day jacket with shoulder pads that even Joan Collins in her Dynasty days would be proud of. I, however, looked at the bags with pure disdain. I knew that in a matter of moments, my ma would have crowbarred me out of whatever I was wearing in order to try on a crushed red velvet A-line dress. I would have stood in front of her giving a Judge Judy eye roll as she gushed about how lovely it looked on me. The clothes made me feel uncomfortable, though. My mind did not relate to the person in the dress. This body needed an ultra-stylish, reversible Mickey Mouse tracksuit on, and pronto. It was around the age of 10 or 11 that my ma finally conceded in the clothing battle. I was finally allowed to choose my own clothes, and thus normal service resumed. It was when I hit puberty that my body, mind, and spirit was thrown into complete turmoil and disarray. Even though I rejected any notion of the feminine and so badly wanted to be a boy, the first time someone addressed me as son, I went to pieces. I cried in my mother's arms whilst adorned in a Nike shell suit, sporting a short, spiky hairdo, 3-stripe Adidas trainers, and there might have been a football at my feet, and I was wondering how on earth someone could have mistaken me for a boy. How people were starting to view me did not match how I thought of myself in my own mind. The misgendering continued for many years and still does to this day. I struggled with it and I was embarrassed, especially if I was with a group of friends. They would have thought that this was just hilarious, while I was forced to go along with it in the hope that they would forget about it sooner rather than later. I laugh about it now, though, as I watch the bar person pre-COVID days, scramble to rectify the, all right, big lad, what's yours? So I progressed then into my mid-20s and had begun to settle into my body much more. It was around about that time that LGBTQ rights were beginning to come to the fore and more publicly discussed. I was starting to frequent the Kremlin or the Crow's Nest for a night out. I wasn't out, but I had several gay friends. Well, you know what they say, birds of a feather and all that. In my mind, I was destined to be a singleton who just enjoyed going out with their mates, and I was totally on board with that. But it was around this time that my ma had developed a full-blown addiction to the QVC channel. She was particularly keen on the beauty products. She watched for hours on end as the telly salespeople peddled the lotions and potions that would ultimately give you the key to a long, happy life, or so they said. I even watched as one salesperson blew some glitter, which she called fairy dust, into the camera, so that all the viewers would have their heart's desires. My ma was fully invested. Meanwhile, I was just wondering how these shysters were able to charge upwards of £100 for a fairy brooch or a pot of moisturising cream. One of these days, my ma was watching a salesperson apply nail varnish to a model's nails. The salesperson invited callers to phone in to talk about the nail varnish if they had previously purchased it. One lady phoned in and said that she had bought the nail varnish and she had worn it. She described that when she had painted her nails, she thought they looked so good it inspired her to lose 4 stone in weight. My ma's head almost came off her shoulders as she turned to me and said, "There you go, Annette. You could buy that and lose some of the weight and perhaps get yourself a man." Having never worn makeup or nail varnish in my life, I stood up without saying a single word, turned on my heels, walked out of the house, and wondered had my ma finally lost the plot altogether. I came out when I was 29. My ma was none too impressed. According to her, she had put my name down for a progressive convent of nuns during one of her many visits to the shrine in Knock. She thought that, seeing as there was no man on the scene, then maybe I would enjoy serving God instead. On the same day that I came out to my parents, my ma's parting shot was, "Is it the weight in it? Is that why you think men don't fancy you? Maybe if you lost the weight, you wouldn't be gay." So I was just wondering, can you imagine the stampede to my door by the hordes of lustful, hot-blooded men if I lost the weight and bought the nail varnish? Fast forward 16 years later, the conversation around gender identity and gender expression is a hot topic, and I'm so glad to see it. I'm glad for kids growing up today who feel like I did. I was born female. I felt masculine and feminine at the same time as I grew up. Some days I feel neither. I know I will continue to feel experiences along the gender identity spectrum as my life progresses. As I grew up, I felt uncomfortable for how I looked. I didn't meet the binary expectations that society imposed on me. Today, this is very different. For me, I have never bought any nail varnish. I continue to wear gender neutral clothes, sport a spiky hairdo, and I'm comfortable that my body, mind, and spirit are aligned. And I'm very happy that I am me. Thank you.
Annette, I think we're very happy that you are you too. So
thanks, Paul.